All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about the incredible, almost unbelievable story of a man who managed to bridge faith and television to become one of the biggest and most surprising stars of 20th century America. I mean, long before we had social media influencers, this guy mastered the brand new media of his day to reach an audience of millions. So let's start right at the height of his fame. The year is 1952. Archbishop Fulton Sheen is on stage accepting an Emmy for Most Outstanding Television Personality. All night, he's watched other stars thank their agents, their producers, their writers. Then he steps up to the mic and delivers this absolute classic line. It just perfectly sums up his whole deal: sharp wit, deep intellect, and this unwavering faith. And what an audience he had. At its peak, his weekly TV show, Life is Worth Living, was pulling in an estimated 30 million viewers every single week. Now just let that number sink in. That put him in direct competition with the absolute biggest names in American entertainment. It's just staggering. So this really is the central question of his story, isn't it? In the golden age of television, an era that was all about big-name comedians and flashy variety shows, how in the world did a Catholic archbishop, basically just a man standing in front of a blackboard, become a primetime superstar? So let's see how he actually built this incredible platform. Because his journey to stardom was anything but an accident. No, this was built over decades. It was a steady, deliberate process of him mastering each new form of media to get his message out there. This timeline really maps out that methodical rise perfectly. He starts out as a priest in Peoria, honing his skills as this really charismatic speaker. Then, boom, 1930, he conquers radio with the Catholic Hour, becoming its most popular voice by far. A decade later, he's already pioneering Catholic TV broadcasting. And by 1952, he wasn't just on television, he was a full-blown network star. You know, his incredible talent for connecting with people wasn't just noticed by his viewers. It was recognized by the other great speakers of the time, including the one and only Billy Graham, who famously called him the great communicator. Coming from him, that's some serious praise. So his weekly show, Life is Worth Living, became way more than just another program. It was a genuine cultural event. Here was a guy tackling these deep philosophical and political issues, but he did it in a way that felt totally accessible and somehow deeply relevant to the average person sitting at home. And this right here just perfectly illustrates his astonishing appeal. So the network schedules his show directly against the undisputed king of television, Milton Berle, a guy literally nicknamed Mr. Television. I mean, most people in the business thought Sheen didn't stand a chance. But just a few months in, millions of Americans were actively choosing to watch the archbishop instead. Unbelievable. And his influence, well, it went way beyond just TV ratings. He made his talks intentionally universal, so they weren't just for Catholics. He was really key in bringing Catholic viewpoints into the mainstream American conversation. And he became famous for guiding these really high-profile figures to Catholicism. We're talking major players from politics, industry, and the media. But you know, that kind of immense popularity doesn't come without conflict. With that level of influence came controversy, some serious professional rivalries, and really profound personal challenges that would end up shaping the entire second half of his career. Right at the peak of his show's popularity, it gets pulled off the air. The story goes that it was due to a rivalry with the powerful Cardinal Spellman of New York. After that, Sheen gets appointed Bishop of Rochester, a move many people saw as an exile to what they called a diocese in Siberia. Some biographers even noted that after all this went down, he seemed to many like a broken man. Now, his public views were incredibly wide-ranging, and honestly, they defied any easy label. On one hand, he was a fierce anti-communist and a critic of Freudian psychology, which a lot of conservatives loved. But then, he also spoke out against the nuclear arms race, and his views on the Vietnam War actually evolved over time, which drew criticism from that very same group. He defended corporal punishment, but also fought for social justice. It really shows a man who was grappling, in public, with the huge moral and political shifts of his time, and he often ended up drawing fire from both the left and the right. After he passed away in 1979, Sheen's story was far from over. If anything, his influence continued to grow, mostly through his massive body of writing and, of course, the formal process started by the Catholic Church to recognize him as a saint. And you have to remember, he wasn't just a media personality. The man was a writing machine. He wrote over 70 books in his lifetime, books on theology, philosophy, and spiritual guidings that are still being read all over the world today. So, in the years after his death, the official process for him to become a saint was opened. Now, in the Catholic Church, this is a very distinct, multi-stage process. He's already been declared venerable, which is a title that recognizes a life of heroic virtue. The next huge step is called beatification. And after years of all sorts of legal and administrative delays, it looks like that process is finally moving forward again. Recent reports are saying that his beatification, that really big next step towards sainthood, is back on track and is expected to be officially scheduled for the fall of 2026. Which leaves us with one final and I think pretty provocative thought. Long before we had podcasts, YouTube, or TikTok, Fulton Sheen was being called a pioneer of the new evangelization. He just got the power of mass media to connect with people and to persuade them. So in our hyper-connected digital world today, what can his story really teach us about the complex and often messy relationship between faith, media, and influence?